Welcome to the Atos presentation on smart manufacturing. I'd like to start by looking at the historical trends in manufacturing. Over the past 20 years in manufacturing, there have been four major trends. The first trend has been strategic, and this is where manufacturing companies have had to deal with rapidly changing market pressures. They've made acquisitions, mergers and divestments of their businesses, new product portfolio changes, new product introduction, diversification, and also changes in the manufacturing base, moving to lower cost manufacturing centres such as China. The second major trend has been in the area of operational activities and is largely centred around cultural change, where they've introduced things such as continuous improvement programs, Six Sigma, statistical process control, and lean principles. The third major trend has been information technology, IT, and this has seen big investments in programs such as ERP, PLM, supply chain management, CRM systems, etc. And the fourth major trend in manufacturing over the last 20 years has been around operational technology, manufacturing-centric systems such as MES, new OEM equipment such as high-speed bottling and packaging lines, SCADA systems, and also PLC control systems. Now, whilst it is true that all four trends have delivered business benefit, most manufacturers are still under pressure to further improve KPIs. And the KPIs that are important to them can range across the business for things such as compliance audits, reducing labour costs, reducing customer complaints, improving asset utilisation, shortening time to market, on time and full delivery, waste reduction, energy cost reduction, improving OEE, reducing inventory levels. And the key thing is that the KPI that's most important to the manufacturer in question can change from business unit to business unit, site to site, region to region, etc. When we look to see how this impacts the business internally, then normally the pressure to improve KPIs comes from the CFO down onto the COO and down into the manufacturing operations and supply chain operations themselves. Traditionally, the business tends to look in two directions for enabling technologies or solutions. The first port of call normally is the CIO, who would normally look at business IT systems and the things that they are familiar with. And the second direction that the business looks to is manufacturing IT systems or operational technology systems, and this is usually headed up by group engineering. Now, in my experience, and in many manufacturers that I speak to, it's fairly true to say that IT and group engineering don't often see eye to eye on the solutions that are required, because they come from very different technology backgrounds and they operate on different platforms. But what is true is that everyone is trying to improve those KPIs, but at the moment there's something of a stalemate and an impasse in terms of how to improve the business further. So the question is, what do you need to solve the problem? Well, from the Atos point of view, we feel that you need four quadrants of capability, which can be demonstrated as follows. The first quadrant is strategic. People who are non-technical and understand and can help the client to strategize, understand where the business is going, help to set the direction, and really understand what it is that the business is trying to achieve. Now, this is normally where the tier 1 consulting firms would operate, Accenture, Deloitte, PwC, Boston Consulting Group, etc. Now, obviously developing a strategy and having a vision is very important, but the plan itself then has to be turned into reality. So the second quadrant of capability that is required to make a plan become real is knowledge of the manufacturing IT systems domain. And this is where vendors, software providers such as Siemens, GE, Wonderware, Rockwell, Aprizo, B&R, many other software providers operate. But in this quadrant there's also the OEM equipment providers like Tetra Pak, Krones, Seidel, the people who produce the physical machines, the conveyors, the robots, and everything that operate in manufacturing systems. And also in this ecosystem, There are also specialist system integrators who will implement the solutions such as MES, SCADA, PLC, OEM equipment, and help the engineering teams to build new factories and new production lines. Now that in itself is only one quadrant of the four. The next quadrant that you have to have domain experience and deep knowledge of is the business IT systems. Now obviously from an ERP point of view, this is where SAP and Oracle are dominant, but then we also have the CRM system providers like Salesforce, PLM system providers, PTC, Dassault, Teamcenter, and also in this ecosystem of business IT systems, there are also a whole range of different solution providers who would provide ERP implementations such as, again, Capgemini, IBM, the Indian offshore providers such as Wipro and Tata, Cognizant. Now the left-hand quadrant and the right-hand quadrant are just enablers, and in many ways they also reflect the situation inside the client, in that the technology providers and system integrators on the left-hand quadrant don't often provide solutions and systems in the right-hand quadrant, and vice versa. So Siemens, for instance, one of the largest providers in the manufacturing domain, don't offer an ERP solution. So, and likewise SAP doesn't come down to manufacturing floor level and provide PLCs and SCADA systems in the same ways that GE, Rockwell, Wonderware, Siemens do. Nevertheless, the two technologies are required to enable the client to move forward. But the fourth quadrant of knowledge and experience that you have to have is the manufacturing domain itself, to speak the language of manufacturing. And this is where you need to understand things like theory of constraints, continuous improvement, Six Sigma, statistical process control, what does OEE mean, process design, P&IDs, V-curves. Because to enable the technologies to provide what the business needs, you have to understand those technologies and principles and speak the language of manufacturing and continuous improvement people and the operators and the process engineers who run the production sites. And this is where Atos positions itself uniquely in the marketplace. Our USP, if you will, is that we have a very strong capability in all four quadrants, and we feel that this sets us apart from some of our traditional competitors in each of the four quadrants. So on a pure consulting activity, or pure ERP implementation or pure MES implementation, there are several companies who could compete. But in that central role to link together strategy, IT, OT, and to also understand manufacturing is where Atos positions itself as unique and having a unique capability and credibility, experience and case studies in the manufacturing sector.